Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're watching, wherever you're watching from. This is In the Middle. My name is Mike, and alongside me is TJ and Kyle. How's it going, guys?
Hey, doing good, Mikey. Again, thanks for having me on the show again. Even though I'm a co-host, I always say thank you because you don't have to have me on the show. I know I always wear out my welcome.
Never, my friend. So I believe we were talking about how I feel that heavy armored guns like the AR-10 that could, carry, big rounds and shoot more than, 45 to 500 rounds per minute. Starting up on our second episode, or second half of the episode.
I get you on that, but actually, I wouldn't mind actually hitting up on the comments with the last. Now that we have an in between.
That's right. Now, I forgot about that.
Hopping into where we were talking about last time because
nice catch.
Right. Let's hop into the comments. Let's see what people were talking about. Actually, at first, Mikey, I think you wanted to mention something before. I think Miriam had another comment afterwards that you wanted to touch on. Is that true?
Yeah, it is. Thank you. But Miriam, I wanted to apologize because I didn't paint the whole picture of your comment, and I apologize for that sincerely. I didn't mean to make it look like I was trying to spin it in one way. My mind just instantly went to that. I seen that you were in the comment saying that, people were getting upset about a criminal, and my mind just kind of went, psh, and I started just focusing on that instead of also stating that you did state in your comments that the officer is 100% in the wrong, and I did not mean to make it sound like that you were like on the officer's side. You did mention that this was a terrible situation.
Mikey, apologize.
Hey, God. You know what? I will
so
always.
Rude.
Hey, I know, and you know what the worst thing is? I mean, at least they're not Italian. They'd never forgive me. No, right? No, but seriously, I apologize. I didn't intend it, and I'm glad you called me out on that because that was not at all my intention. And I think that's also something that that's just human of us, that we see something and we just run with it. And we forget to look at all the other and talk about all the other information. So again, thank you very much for the comments. I appreciate it. And, I just wanted to apologize again for not painting the whole picture there.
Yeah, I know it's not so much of a human mindset, but it's definitely a liberal mindset. So we will, accept your apology on that.
As the Fox News lover.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself. So, no, so let's talk about this. There was one from actually Valentino Lopez. Can I read this one to you, Mikey, and see if you have a response?
I thought we deleted it.
We usually try to do our best to, take his opinion out of here. So with the one gun, one bullet logic, should we stop there? Or do we need cars? Or do we need cars that go over 80 miles per hour? Or do we need drinks at a certain percentage? So my understanding is obviously if, you put one bullet in one gun, then obviously if that's your logic, right, why do we have cars that go over 80 miles per hour? Do we need cars that go 80 miles per hour, right? There's a certain drink limit. So why do we have drinks that can go over, the drunk limit, right? So what would be your response back to Valentino Lopez with that type of mentality?
Well, with that mentality, I mean, I get where you're coming from. I mean, why not? You could speak on limitations of anything. The thing is, I mean, car accidents kill more people than guns. So you're asking, more people also own cars than guns. So as far as comparing the two on limitations, I see more massive individuals being killed. For example, a Las Vegas shooter, one individual killing 57 people with a weapon that can shoot 45 to 700 rounds per minute, where a vehicle, okay, let's be honest, nobody ever wants a car accident or anything like that. And car accidents do happen where people unfortunately do pass away. But should we limit it? That's a debate. We could debate that. I don't think so. Because cars, and I don't think so because cars don't kill massive amounts of people within seconds unless you have a bomb in the back of it and drive it into a building or something like that. That's
we'll talk about that a little bit later there, Mike. You actually have an example where we talk about that exact same thing. So hold on to that thought there, Mikey. We're going to hit that one coming up soon. So I'm sorry. You still got more? To really answer your question, Val, we could sky's the limit on what we say, what we should limit. I don't think so, because cars, although you could put a bomb in the back seat and whatnot and kill hundreds of people, more guns that could shoot out 45 to 700 rounds a minute have killed more people than that statistic of cars killing people with bombs or anything like that. I just got to bust your balls a little bit, Mikey. Every time you say rounds per minute, it changes.
What do you mean?
Yeah, every time you 700, 500, 20 zillion.
Oh, never said 20 zillion. As long as I say a number between 45 to 700, I'm in the range, okay? Because we shouldn't be shooting out even 10 shots a second.
That's an amazing trigger pull there, but I haven't seen Kyle at the range yet, but maybe he can do that. I don't know. He actually does that when he's at the range.
One time I did that. I mag dumped like that, and the range officer comes over. He's like, "Do you feel better now?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I do." I felt great.
Well, people give me shit for 22 sometimes. I tell people that's just a great way to dump ammo. They're not expensive.
I did it with my 22 with the 50-round drum. I dumped that 50-round drum. My finger was tired, and he just comes over like, "You feel better?" Yes.
Right? I agree. Just that's why I have 22s. It's just literally those days where I just want to be like Rambo at the range.
The NRA is so proud of you guys.
Right? Sponsorship right here. NRA sponsorship. So on the next thing, let's talk about our friend Christopher Ritchie. Thank you for your comments there. That's a new person joining our podcast or YouTube group here. Obviously, he kind of busted a little bit balls here about how many rounds you can fire at once by pulling the trigger and all that stuff. But he also brought up that there were no revolvers at the time of the Constitution being written. They were black powder pistols, which are the same you would see used in Black Sails or the Patriot. What I would like to say about this is that obviously we have a lot of communications here. We do sometimes get things wrong. We do want to adjust and fix things and be accurate. But if you read the previous comments, what other people have written, we already tackled this. So not saying that you can't give another jab or a good go at it, my friend, but that comment was already corrected, and we actually already busted Cal's balls on it, and we had a good laugh on it. He didn't need another dig at it, but thank you for doing that. Constantly continue bringing us infos and communicating the subject. We just want to again bust a little balls here and laugh and stuff. But the other thing too, he asked how many deaths in Hawaii by coconuts. So I did the research, and I don't have the actual most recent numbers, but funny enough, coconuts is the deadliest fruit. If I ever go to Hawaii, I'm never going underneath the tree again. Coconuts kill 150 people at least.
Oh no!
But that's not just Hawaii. That's like the world.
It is. Boo your statistic. I was just about to say, I'm going to bring my gun to Hawaii and shoot every coconut in defense of every human being in Hawaii.
What, you still shoot? Dude, how many people have you heard die by banana, Kyle?
Die by banana.
These coconuts have a thing.
There are people who die by banana. I'm sure somebody is choked at some point. There has to be. If anybody out there has that statistic, please leave it in the comments. We want to see that.
Hey,
right?
Hey, wait a minute. How many people died by coconut in the world?
150.
So do you know what's funny is that Hawaii and like 4 other states have more gun deaths or less gun deaths than there are coconut deaths in the world.
Exactly.
Gun debate over. We need coconut control.
Go ahead.
So we do, right? So coconuts are a problem. Be careful out there, because while you're watching, to make sure you don't get shot at, you never notice the hidden danger above you. Death by coconut!
Oh my God.
The funny thing, we're all laughing about this, and the first time I ever get a paid trip to Hawaii, I'm going to die by coconut because of this conversation. How did TJ die? Coconut, man!
Coconut.
Like Christopher Ritchie tried to warn them, man. Christopher Ritchie tried to warn everybody. We're all fucked up on these gun deaths. No one's thinking about these coconuts coming after people.
Gravity's a bitch.
Gravity is a bitch. Number 1 deaths. I think that's also it's not the number 1 deaths, but I think it's like number 3 or 4 is gravity, like falling off of stuff.
Oh, hey. Gravity is also a bitch, especially as you get older. I've learned that one.
All right, and last comment goes to Kyle. Again, Valentino Lopez would like to once again thank Kyle's for these pop-ups. They are amazing and appropriate. Why don't you get enough praise? I've given up on this. Kyle, I am so glad that you're our editor and that you're doing all the hard work, because I don't know what I'm doing on Thursdays anymore. I really don't. I thought I was doing this stuff.
You're sitting around plotting your revenge on coconuts. I'm here busting my ass, finding memes and statistics, and you're worried about fucking coconuts.
Coconuts?
Kyle, I literally have a fear of coconuts right now. That's my new fear. I don't know what that's called. Cocophobia, whatever.
Cocophobia.
Not a phobia, something like that.
Watch out for those assault coconuts. They fall at 3 per second.
Who would have ever known I would have been worried about being assaulted by nuts?
At least they weren't attached to a human.
TJ, we always knew.
Okay, but thank you guys for the comments. Thanks for talking on the show. Typing it in there. Like I said, every week we're going to cover this stuff. I know for the first couple of episodes we put them out, a lot of people comment. We weren't able to catch up, but we are talking about doing a follow-up on a lot of these old shows, talking about your old comments. So continue putting this stuff in. We will work back because, man, these topics aren't going away, so we will circle back with other special guests, and we have a lot of new guests actually coming on. A lot of people are liking the show. We got a lot of fan following, so guys, continue sharing us, following us. It's working. We're actually getting a lot of hits. We're actually doing pretty well. So for a show that we've only started like 3 weeks ago, we're doing really good, and that's thanks to you guys. So keep it up. Now,
actually, TJ, before you go on, I also want to let everybody know that we created a Facebook page. So like our Facebook page, and you'll get you'll know instantly when we upload the video. Also, join our YouTube channel for additional information. You could get that through the new Facebook page that we created. So like that, follow us, so you get those updates as quickly as possible. In the Middle by Stupid Genius Productions is how you would, Stupid Genius Broadcasting is how you would find us. So In the Middle by Stupid Genius Broadcasting.
In the middle.
In the middle.
So, all right. So now back to what you first brought up, which was we ended the show on a cliffhanger, our first cliffhanger ever, which you were talking about, which was when obviously do we have to use weapons with mass mass rounds. And actually, funny enough, I have two examples. Thanks to this long break we had, I now have two examples. The first example I brought up, which was the Cliven Bundy. You kept saying Ted Bundy, the murderer. The mass murderer did not have an army and a militia. His name was Cliven Bundy.
Clive Bundy, yes.
And any way that you swing that conversation, okay, so obviously, you know, he paid taxes on the land. He wanted to use that land. The federal government came in and went, hey, you can't use that land. Whoever's right and wrong here, Cliven has a lot of wrongs. Okay, I will admit that. Obviously, you know, this is the federal government. You have to pay your taxes and stuff like that. His biggest thing that does annoy me is that he just stopped paying taxes. Exactly. That is a problem. Yeah, you know, he was like, well, fuck you. I'm just not going to pay my taxes. But obviously, the point that I'm also making is that did he do things the right way? Did he do things the wrong way? That's all up to debate. We can have a whole episode on just literally how do you handle a situation like this. But to talk about a group of people who felt they were fighting back a tyrannical government that was coming in, because it was, right? They did have that land. They were paying taxes on that land. The federal government went, no, screw you. We have this new Desert Tortoise Act that we have to make sure these people, which was in Vegas, but then they were able to have additional spots and lands that they just got to pick. And they went, we want this one, we want this one, we want this one. It's kind of one of those things where, and we know this, me and you talked about this, Mikey, where sometimes you sign one thing because that's what's going to benefit you, but then it has a lot of bad things attached to it. We talk about that with a lot of, you know, with a lot of bills, how things get passed, where this part of the bill helps the baby elephants, right? That's what you really want to do. You want to take care of the baby elephants, but this one kills all the harbor seals. And then you're like, I don't know, which one do I like better? It's a bad example, but I'm just using it as a joke. But obviously, there's a little bit of an overreach, and that's what they felt. They felt that it was an overreach. Now, did they do things the most proper way? Most likely not. We can, like I said, we can have a whole debate and argument probably on this. But did they stand for what they believe in? Did they prevent the federal government where they felt like there was an overreach, and were they armed? And the answer was yes to all of that. And in the long run, it ended up being peaceful. Did he spend his time in jail? Yes. But did they get to keep their land? Did they get to continue grazing? Did they lose their property? And the answer is no. So they were able to stand their ground and kind of end up winning the battle that they were trying to fight. The second example, I don't know. Do you have anything on the Cliven Bundy thing before I get to my second example?
Yeah, before you get to that, I mean, I have to say to do more research on that because there is no debate. He was 100% in the wrong. The government had essentially rezoned that for, I believe it wasn't rezoned, but it was a national, national land is what they made it.
They made it.
You are still able
to keep the desert tortoise.
Now, right.
So, having weapons that have obviously mass rounds. Why? To protect yourself from a government. Now you can look at that any other ways. The other thing, which was, and actually to bring up to Cal's point, which he was talking about last episode, which was what happens when rioters cross the line and come onto my property. Mm-hmm. And you have 100 rioters coming at you. Mm-hmm. Is it okay to only have one bullet in your gun to stop these rioters from coming at you? If you go, and it's made national news now, the what did they call them? They call her the Karen with guns or something like that. I may let Kyle step in here because I think he knows the correct terminology.
No, I think it was.
What were their names?
It was like Karen and Ken, I think.
Karen and Ken. That's what it was.
Karen and Ken. Yeah, I think that's it. The Karen and Ken, the gun owners.
The memes, right? The memes are incredible. I love the memes.
Which were funny on all aspects. I'm sorry to say, even though when I heard all the, because this is my media bashing. Oh, media bashing time from TJ. Oh, surprise! They got bashed on, and they were like, "Oh, look at these people just pulling out their guns on protesters." And then you find out the whole story, and you find out, oh shit, these protesters came on their property. These protesters went through their gate. They came straight for their house, right? And then on top of it, you got news showing what these protesters are doing. These people felt threatened. Now, by the way, talking about Karen, you fucked up. Ken, money on the book. Can anyone tell me why Karen fucked up?
Because her name was Karen?
Exactly. Exactly. Her name was Karen. That's why. And we don't like Karens in this day and age. Damn you, Karen. No, but Karen fucked up because while she was actually pointing. Don't point and don't have your finger on the trigger. That I do agree with. Most people caught that. I caught that. That was my only no on it. And if they get into legal troubles, I can see them get into legal troubles for that. Where he had it, he did not have it in a attack position. He did not have it actually pointing at people. He had it sidearm like this and moving through. But that's a prime example to have, a gun with a lot of rounds.
So if I remember correctly, number one, they didn't have a lot of rounds. If I remember correctly, she had a pistol.
They had more than one round.
Okay, she had a pistol and he had a shotgun, if memory serves me correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. AR.
He had an AR-15.
You had an AR? Okay. So here's what I'm saying. First off,
that's what they're reporting at least, right, Kyle? We all know they like to report the wrong thing, but it did look like an AR-15 to be honest.
Okay, an AR-15. So here's the thing. You're going to say that rioters are going to come onto your property. You can hold them off with your gun, with your pistol. If you can't, then at this point, it sounds like that these rioters have not just gotten past the police barriers, not just past the National Guard barriers, but if those two things, if the police and the National Guard wasn't able to hold these people back from storming them, what makes you think that any kind of weaponry is going to protect you from these people storming you? They've already gotten past the police. They've already gotten past the National Guard if they're getting to you. So what makes you think that having more bullets is going to help save your life when 200 people are storming you?
Well, I'm a little confused by that question. When did these guys get past the National Guard and the police to get to these people? My understanding that they were protesting and they just broke into their... I didn't know they were national. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe that's part of the story I'm missing. I didn't know they broke through the police, then the National Guard, then got onto these people's property.
To tell you the truth, I don't know a whole lot of this situation. You guys are kind of bringing me up to it. I've kind of seen some Facebook posts on it.
Are you being just general?
I'm speaking more in general. If a storm of people is looking to cause havoc and cause destruction, let's use the recent riots as a prime example.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were done.
I'm sorry. I paused. But the police didn't hold them back, and the National Guard couldn't hold them back.
Well, to correct you on that, they did a lot of holding back. There were also, to a certain point of, they pulled back to kind of prevent more accidents, more deaths, more injuries. Now, for an example, if the National Guard and police were actually using lethal rounds, we would have a different conversation. Mm-hmm. They were using protective rounds.
Right.
So there's a huge difference with that. And again, I don't give a hell what goes on in the streets, but in my home, when it comes to my family, then yes, I am going to want to protect as many people because I have to. I mean, 100 people coming at me doesn't matter. If I could take down 20 of them, will that prevent the rest of them? Maybe, maybe not. But once people start dropping in front of other people, yeah, I think that's going to send a message. And I think when people saw that, because it could, those people, when you watch the whole video, they busted in that place like ready to, we're walking. Not saying they're going to destroy stuff. I'm not going to assume that. I didn't see that happening. But they walked in there like they were big old machos. Those people came out with guns. Suddenly they were like, oh shit, and they backed up. So again, knowing that they met a lethal force pushed them back. And absolutely. I think that was kind of the whole point of our conversation. I am not doubting that when those people seen the gun, that they backed up. But you're not going to tell me you can. Let me rephrase it this way: you unfortunately cannot convince me that if
they didn't have an AR-10 or AR-15, that they wouldn't have had the same results. If they both had pistols, just for the pure fact of them having guns and being armed, that would be enough to stop the individuals.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So on that, Mikey, actually that brings up into our next, obviously, mass shootings in the AR-15. What's the difference between an AR-15 and a pistol? And I just want your kind of viewpoint on this. Why are you okay with these people having pistols and not AR-15s?
Well, because a pistol, even though you may be able to have, I mean, I don't know the specifics, and I'm sure I'll get dogged on it, but let's say 5 to 10 rounds in a pistol, or a
magazine.
Magazine. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. In a magazine, let's even say you had 7 to 10 rounds in it, whatever it holds. That is going to allow that if you are in a mass shooting, you're going to have to reload. And essentially at that point, that gives the ability that if there is somebody else with a weapon, that gives them a little bit of time to be able to turn around and stop the individual. If you look at mass shootings, yeah, there may be more mass shootings by pistols or shotguns or whatever, depending on a database. Some areas consider a mass shooting of 3 or more, 4 or more, some depending on the database.
I know, I'm kind of eerie on that, but I'll let you continue.
Yeah, it depends on that's what the FBI on one page that I seen said. It was like 3 or 4. Another page said 5. So yeah, go ahead, TJ.
So real quick, Mikey, to discuss on what Mikey's talking about, guys, is that when we did our research on this and we were looking, and Mikey, correct me if I'm wrong, we were even taken back that a lot of mass shootings could be considered just 3-4 people in a household. Yeah, and exactly. A lot of times when we think of mass shootings, we think of mass shootings, the public out there displaying shootings. Like Vegas, correct. And I think that's where a lot of their information gets screwed because, people are like, oh my God, we had you hear this all the time. We had 130 mass shootings. And it's just like, well, actually, no. We actually had about 10 mass shootings, 8 mass shootings, maybe even 5 mass shootings. Most of the time, it's people getting whacked in their own home. It's the ghetto taking care of, right? But I'm honest, right? There's a lot of family shootings.
No, you're absolutely right.
We found a lot of stuff. But so go ahead, Mikey, continue. My bad. I just want to explain what we were discussing on that because when we found that information, we were even a little shocked on what considered a mass shooting.
Yeah, you're 100% right, and I was actually going to say exactly that. You're summarizing what I was going to say, but yeah, it's amazing it's amazing that even 3 or 4. Some people say, "Oh, it's not until it's 4. Oh, it's not until it's 5." It's like, okay, whatever. But at that point, so I can understand why pistols and shotguns are listed as the number 1 weapon as mass shootings. But if you look at those mass shootings, and TJ should have the numbers up from the FBI website.
Stop saying that. I may not. I fucked up last episode. Don't throw me underneath the bus again.
Hopefully he has it up there, but
that's not better. Bad editor.
You're fired.
This is why I get the praise and you don't.
Shut up, Kyle. Shut up, Kyle.
So, as I was saying, so even though there may be more mass shootings by pistols and shotguns, hell, we'll even throw knives and fists in there because that was a category as well. The thing is, gun violence, homicide by gun is actually, it's funny. Let me ask you this, TJ. If I was to tell you, take a guess to tell me how many states have a homicide by gun rate, how many states are over 50%?
I don't know. How many states does your family live in? Oh, bazinga!
3?
You Italian bastard.
We're going with 3. Florida, Arizona, and New York.
That's where New Yorkers move. It's so true.
Seriously, Kyle, if you want to take a number, what number of states do you think is in that over 50% category?
That people kill each other with guns?
It's homicide by gun.
35%. I like this game. There's a game that we play on Jackbox. You gotta guess the numbers and the range. I'm gonna go with 35. Kyle, what are you gonna go?
What do you think, Kyle?
Are you saying the actual number of states or percentage? Because TJ mentioned percentage.
Okay, let's say you said percentage.
I'm saying 35% of the states.
Oh, 35. Okay, let's go by percentage. That's fine. Let's go by percentage.
Percentage. Yeah, I don't know. 15.
Kyle wants to play the game right. You can tell. He's like, I want to play this game right.
I'm just trying to think because like you got a lot of the small states, so the number could be high. You know, we talked about this off camera where, you know, if there's like 4 deaths and 3 of them were by gun, you're saying it's like a 90% rate. You know.
Yeah. But that's what he's talking about. So
but that's what I'm talking. It's a percentage.
Well, that's why I said 15. Just throw it low.
15. Okay. So if this was what's that show? Not Wheel of Fortune. The Price is Right. Kyle would actually win because TJ would win because he didn't go over. It's 70%. 70% of the states have 50%, over 50% homicide by gun. That means.
So where did you get this from?
So what I did was I took the information from the CDC, which, you know, we debated before about, how does the CDC get the numbers? Well, I did some investigating on that. And I'm going to put it to the people the same way that I kind of talked to you about it. But you're playing with a gun, you're defending yourself, whatever happens, gun goes off, you get shot. Where do you end up? TJ, yeah. Where do you end up? In the hospital.
Dead.
Okay. Dead or not. Either way, you're going to end up in the hospital first, right? Okay.
This is why I don't play Wheel of Fortune. I'm so bad at that game.
So you're gonna go to the hospital, right? Okay. So you go to the hospital. Now the CDC has systems set up that are connected to the hospital databases that say, okay, how did this person get in here? That's why you take that questionnaire when you get into the hospital. What happened? How did it happen? What's going on? So now that a CDC grabs that database and says, oh, hey, this is the firearm death. So that's where I got the firearm death information. But then what I did was I took the FBI database of the weaponry used. The CDC didn't really define what weaponry was used. They just defined it as a firearm. But the FBI, which is not accurate information, and the evidence behind that is when you're looking at the FBI database, number one, they don't include Florida. And number two, Alabama has got like
a skew. Florida. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue going.
I'm sorry. The FBI did not supply homicide by gun for Florida is what I'm showing. But if I'm wrong, please correct me. But even at that, we both agreed at least that Alabama's numbers were completely whack.
Alabama's numbers was completely whacked at the CDC too. But go ahead. Finish your point too. So, and then I'll get to my point.
I don't remember it being whack on the CDC, but maybe. But at the end of the day, I was able to find more numbers in databases when I went to specific state websites that shared numbers. So like I went to the California website for the Direct California. I don't remember what it was, but it was their internal sources website, and it showed numbers that were closer to the CDC. The CDC closer to
Neverland people.
It is Neverland. The numbers were closer to the CDC than they were to the FBI. So, I mean, there were some numbers that were accurate and 100% to what the CDC was sending.
They get their numbers from the CDC. So, I'm sorry. Can I butt in here real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. Please go ahead.
So I did. So I looked at states too and information, and they get their numbers from the CDC. So I didn't see that the CDC gets their number from the states. I saw that certain things that I was getting from was actually from the CDC. Now, there's a couple things where I think were a couple corrections. I could be wrong on this. I'm not going to die on this hill, but it's the fact of the matter is that CDC doesn't get all gun-related deaths because not everyone does make it to the hospital. Being in law enforcement, prior law enforcement, when you have a murder and you have a case, those people don't make it to hospital. So most homicides, I forgive everyone for saying homicides. That was not my plan. I'm sorry. I apologize now. We'll bleep that out. Homicides, okay? Most homicides.
I'll have to talk to the editor.
Canceled. Feed just goes out. You've been canceled. No, so the homicides, they're not going to make it into hospitals and stuff like that. That's going to be straight. So that could be where we're getting a lot of different datas, right? Where FBI's maybe is counting the homicides that are actual murders and deaths and kills, and the CDCs are people who actually maybe have been shot and actually made it to the hospital. I will give you that amount of information. Now, where I did disagree and why I kept saying that I didn't use the CDC information, and me and you both discovered this, especially in states like Alabama and Missouri, where the numbers never matched up. We could not match it up to the FBI, but even afterwards, their percentages were all off. And I think that's why me and you both spent time to make our own percentages, right? You made your own percentages, I made my own percentages, because we found things where people were like, oh, the death rate for, cardiac arrest in California was 140%. Well, how the fuck? What? No, that doesn't make sense. So is it an increase of 140%? How is that? And then the biggest thing, which I think was your thing, which was Alabama, which I think was like 25, it was like Alabama or Missouri, which was like a 22% death rate. And me and you had a very thorough and long conversation when we did all the numbers and we added up all the mortality and all that stuff. We could not, for the life of us, make 25% at all. It came up to when we actually did the mortality rate, it came up to, I think, 3% in Missouri, and then it came down to 1.5% in California, which they had at 7%. So it was a huge reduction. Again, that's why I didn't use those numbers and why I still feel like the CDC is still not correct. But the numbers that I created, I took just the total population to if you died by firearms, right? So I took the total population and the firearm, how many people died by firearm at that state. And again, to let you know, Missouri had a 0.0003% deaths by guns, and California had a 0.00005%, so a less, right? Even though California had more deaths overall, I think they were at like 1,500 in 2018. They were at 1,300 in 2017. Missouri was only at 400, but if you take the total population, right, and that's how I did, right? You take the total population, divide that by the number, again, you get those numbers. Again, when you hear, oh, you have a 25 or 22% death rate chance in Missouri, that's just not incorrect. That's just completely incorrect. So even though I still will agree with you, Missouri does have a higher death rate. We did all the numbers. We added all the factors. I think even your numbers show that afterwards. By the way, can we all mention something? Can I take a quick moment? Just a quick moment. Kobe, you come from Missouri. I don't know what the hell is in your state, but I do want to say how much I love you right now before you pass, because your state dies from everything. You're number one in everything.
TJ,
that's why we got her here.
Oh, she's from Missouri or Mississippi?
I think she's Mississippi.
Yeah, he's right. She's Mississippi.
Sorry, Colby. We couldn't rein him in time. Sorry. We love you,
to be fair, we talked about this for the past week. No one corrected me until now. So fuck my teammates.
Didn't you
we
say,
literally said this the whole time.
I thought you said
but by the way,
time.
Kyle, Mississippi is only like third. So still give her a hug.
Air hugs.
Right.
Either way, she's screwed.
You are married, Kyle. You are married. Keep those hands from this to this, okay?
Leave room for Jesus. Okay.
That was good filibuster. I was laughing too hard. I can't come back.
Val is rubbing off on us from movies and stuff. Now we can't stop laughing. We have to filibuster and collect ourselves. Thank you. Thank you.
By the way, talking about movies and stuff, someone mentioned that, and that is probably one of the funniest parts. Is when they ask Val to filibuster and he just stops talking altogether. He just stops. He's like, yeah, Val, can you filibuster in this while I look this information up? And he's like, yeah, sure. So, guys, if you guys don't know, movies and stuff is hosted by our friends Val and Jordan. It's a funny show. It's a great show, except the last one where fucking Jordan admitted Batman Forever is the greatest out of the four old ones that came out in the 80s and 90s. Because I don't know.
I stand by that. I will actually agree with him on that. I'm actually going to take his side on that.
Mike from this feed.
Hey, TJ,
I probably
don't forget.
while I'm doing this. I probably could somehow. I think I just have to delete him off the scene.
Actually, Mikey, hey, Mikey, can you do me a favor?
Mikey, did you mute yourself? I think he muted himself because now there's no audio. I didn't touch anything.
Hey, Mike, you're on mute, bud.
Yeah, we actually can't hear anything from you.
So I have no idea what happened, but
there you go. You're back.
So
actually,
I think
I muted you.
Dude.
How were you able to do that? I couldn't even figure that out.
I muted him, but I couldn't unmute him.
Oh, that's right. I did that to you guys before. That's right. I did that before.
he said something too stupid. I can listen to everything Mike says until he just said Batman Forever is the best 90s, 80s Batman movie.
Come on, man. Danny DeVito was absolutely epic in that movie. I mean, come on.
He was a good Penguin.
Oh, no, that's the one I'm thinking of is Batman Returns. You're right. Oh, my God.
Batman Returns, Batman Forever.
Oh,
Batman. It's the campy Joel Schumacher. Don't get me wrong. The best Riddler, by the way. Love Jim Carrey.
I was going to say, that was the best Riddler. Yes.
But it was the best Riddler, but the rest of it was horrible. Tommy Lee Jones, fucking Two-Face, overacting motherfucker. I mean, the whole thing was supposed to be campy. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people like that. If you like the Adam West ones, that's what Adam West was. It was a big kickback to the Adam West things. If you like that, I get that. But when you compare it to okay, so this is the way I see it. We got into this whole movie riff, right?
We should probably get back on track.
let me say something really quick. But when you compare about movies, right? This is the way I see it. If you ask me what my favorite horror movie of all time is, I'm going to say Evil Dead 2. I love it. It's very entertaining. It's fun. But when you ask me what is the best, what's an actual good horror movie, not something that's campy, because Evil Dead 2 is very campy. The show is campy. I enjoy it because of the campiness. I get when people say Batman Forever, campiness, get it. But when you say good horror movie, The Thing, Kurt Russell, love it. One of my favorite.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Great horror movie, so it's my same thing with the Batman movies. Can I see why people like the campiness of Forever? But Batman, oh my God, that first Batman movie with the Joker, Jack Nicholson's, the lines their most quotable lines in movies is so great. You would have hit a guy with glasses, right? So great, out of nowhere.
He puts those little friggin'
You dropped me in a vat of acid, and don't think I didn't try to get over it.
That sounds like a Val thing. That sounds like he would say that.
But it's so good. It's a great. I'm sorry, but anyways, great movies. Go see movies and stuff. We gave them enough advertisement already. Go check them out. It's a great show. Catch them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. But back to our show, where we're talking about the fun stuff of gun violence. We're talking about with the AR-15, with the numbers from the CDC, how I don't agree that the numbers match up, but with the percentage rate from California, with the percentage rate from Missouri and stuff like that, I can see those numbers, but they're still so small, Mikey. I think that, again, we're focusing on these really, 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 really small numbers, right? And we're like trying to make a big deal. But you've even mentioned this before, where car deaths are the top of the list. Mikey, you drink soda. Diabetes is going to kill you way more chance than a fucking pistol or an AR-15 or any other weapons. So in my eyes, again, when we talk about banning AR-15s and we talk about mass shootings, why is that such high on the list when there's so many other things that can kill you, like vehicles, like your Coca-Cola? Why should we not focus on higher mortality rates? And why are we so focused on these minor numbers of death by firearm?
Well, first off, as far as what you're saying health-wise with diabetes and whatnot, I mean...
Diabetes.
I mean, we could go on about a bunch of statistics that are more deadly than guns, but the thing is, one thing that you're leaving out is more people own cars than people that own guns. So of course that rate is going to be higher. Now, here's the thing is, to me, the reason that I feel that an AR-15 or some gun like that shouldn't be or has no purpose in a civilian's hands is due to the fact that when there is a mass shooting, just for example, the Las Vegas one, it's those kind of weapons that take out a massive amount of people. 57 in Vegas, 35 or so with Sandy Hook. So, if you take a car, unless you have a bomb or something strapped to it, it's not going to kill that amount of people in an accident unless you have a semi truck or something like that.
And I'm glad that you kind of circled back, because I think I originally asked you, what's the difference between pistols, and you got into all your numbers and stuff like that. And I get with the numbers in the firearms, and then you got into all your statistics. But again, I know you kept saying that AR-15s and that stuff. But to be honest with you, they're all semi-automatic weapons. Means one trigger pull, one shot. So again, you can still kill that many people with a pistol as you could with an AR-15. You can still kill that many people with a shotgun to an AR-15. And I think that's what, as the people who use guns, it's like, okay, do we ban all guns? Because just saying that an AR-15 is the problem doesn't make a lot of sense when the semi-automatic feature. Because you can have a magazine with 15 on an AR-15, and you can have a magazine with 15 on a pistol. So what's the difference? One trigger, one bullet.
So here's what I'm saying. First off, I am against any gun that you can rapidly fire. And I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself, because you're saying that I'm just against the AR-15. No. I'm against any weapon, and for you to be able to modify any weapon that's going to be able to give you the ability to do something like in Las Vegas, where you level out 57 people in a matter of 5 to 10 minutes.
So you get all guns.
But no, that's not what I'm saying, TJ.
But then all guns can do that. That's kind of the point that I'm making.
So you're telling me that a pistol with a 6-round or 10-round magazine, you're not going to have any, you're going to have the same amount of time. You're going to be able to fire off just as many rounds with that 10 magazine as an AR-15 or anything that's going to pump 40 to 700 rounds per second.
If I have a 5 to 10 magazine, just like I do for the pistol, it doesn't matter what's shooting it. It's the size of your magazine. And yes, if I have 5 rounds in the pistol to I have 5 rounds in the magazine, it's going to be the same.
But you're going to be able to change that. You're going to have to change that magazine a lot quicker. Not with a pistol, but if you have
no, I'm saying with the pistol.
With a pistol, you're right.
I can drop a clip with the pistol, slam it back in, slide, boom. Same thing I can do with the rifle. Okay, but you're going to be able to. You're saying that you fire the same amount of rounds with a pistol as an AR-15. The clip is the same on the magazine. Yes.
Okay, so now we're getting to it. Okay, so the magazine is where I'll maybe say that I'm against. Maybe not the gun itself, but the magazine size.
Okay.
You're mentioning that it's that you have to, after your 10 rounds, you have to drop and clip. Okay, great. But if you have a gun that's going to be able to hold 100 rounds, it's going to take a lot longer for them to have to drop that clip and reload for somebody who is armed to be able to get a shot, if there's somebody that's not coward enough to be able to take that shot. And I'm not calling people with guns cowards, but it takes a lot more than bravery to pull a trigger and end somebody's life. I've spoken to many people who served in the military and have pulled that trigger, and they always say that it's never an easy decision. So, I commend people who are able to do that, because it's not a first reaction. I hear gunshots, boom, I'm going to go ahead and take out my gun. What's going to happen is people are going to run. Now, if somebody has military training, like my father, like you, like maybe Kyle, maybe not Kyle, but Marshall,
We don't have to bring up Marshall's name.
No, I'm just saying you got military training. If you have military training and you got that, and you have a gun and you hear a shot, that's where maybe I'll say the small percentage of people are going to turn around and say, "Oh, gunshot, got to defend." But no, people's first reaction when you hear a gunshot is to duck and take cover.
I want to see your next action movie, Mikey.
So my point being is, and people could say, "Oh, we're going to carry our guns," but there is no need in a civilian hands to be able to need to launch out 100 rounds before, or whatever it is, 50, 20 rounds before you need to reload. There needs to be ample time that if somebody is going on a rampage, somebody else could take them out, or give law enforcement time to get there to take them out.
Okay, so I won't get into our first episode, right, where we talked about why, obviously, we need to protect ourselves from tyrannical government, and that's why we have all these additional rounds and clips, and why we spend the additional money for that. Let's pass that conversation. Let's just talk about home defense, home protection, and obviously what you're stating with the magazine size, which is, I think, again, where I think we should start, because this whole big fear that an AR-15 is the most deadliest weapon out there, and how dare we have this military rifle, because I think that's where the perception falls apart at. And I think that's where, again, because the whole point of this show, right, between us, is to have this conversation, to just like how we talked about now, which was, you're like, well, wait, maybe I'm wrong about being scared of guns, but I'm not wrong about the magazine size. You still want something that can be controlled by 5 to 4 rounds.
So what I've been actually, maybe I didn't put it as plainly as this, but if you go back and you look at everything, what I'm saying has always been pointing to the magazines, because I've kept saying, and I've said throughout the whole 2-part episode, is there's no reason that you should be able to fire off that many rounds in that short of time. So in reality, even though I didn't say directly that it's pointed to the magazines, I feel I've been pointing to that. I've never said directly to one gun. I've said to any gun that can fire off this amount of rounds in this amount of time.
Yes, and I will agree with your statement with that, but still, you did have the perception that an AR-15 can shoot off a lot of more rounds quickly and faster and hold a lot more capacity than a pistol, which I think a lot of people have that misconception, right? And I think that's one thing that I wanted to say that we cleared up. Now, on that point, after that, what do you think is the solution? I mean, we talk about a lot of gun violence. We've thrown out history in the last episode. We kind of had this more episode where we kind of just had a bantered back and forth about AR-15s, because obviously that's always where the conversation goes. You know, do we need AR-15s? Do we need to have all these bullets and these guns and stuff like that? So let's meet in the middle as two people who are trying to sit back and make the world better. What are certain things that we can agree on, or at least what can we propose to each other to help with the situation?
Well, I definitely think that we need to have laws in effect as far as when you get the weapon. I feel anybody with any type of gun should have to go through, I don't know, I'm going off the top of my head, maybe 3 months is too long, not long enough. I don't know what the proper time is, but there should be a proper course where you get a certification to be able to handle a gun, and training, preferably military-like training, to be able to, if you get into that situation, you're ready and you don't go hiding, and you know how to use the gun. I'm sure there's programs and stuff out there like that. But if it's not mandatory, and I don't think it's mandatory in all 50 states, I think we need to start there. And then hopefully start limiting the magazines. I mean, like I said, I want the outcome to be that if there is a shooter, they have to reload in a lot shorter of a time for somebody to be able to counteract them.
So you don't believe that taking guns away is the course of action?
I never said that.
Do you believe that
no.
guns can protect?
Oh, I've always said that, 100%. I totally agree with that. I've seen it. I mean, we've seen it on the news. I've seen it in real life. So yeah, I've never debated that fact.
Okay, no, I mean that's a good. I think a lot of times when people have this discussion, that's and I think one of the biggest things is evidence has shown and proven. I mean, like if you have, I think that's one of my biggest things too, especially with a lot of these mass shootings, where people are like, "Oh, mass shootings are showing us why we shouldn't have guns," and in my eyes, it's like, no, it's actually showing me why I should have guns and why and I agree with you, why we should train and why should we be better equipped instead of being scared of guns. We should be better informed and aware of them and train better on it and have a better understanding, because a lot of the times, like that, the guy who broke into the church, right? He came in, started shooting, and there's 5-6 other people. He got off 2 shots, and everyone had guns on them and were able to take them down.
Exactly.
The thing about mass shootings, especially, is we've all had. I'm one of them. I'm exactly one of these that we're like, well, that's why we have police. That's why we have law enforcement. That's why we have all these, but it's shown over and over and over the failure of. You can see how many times these people have been warned. Oh, let people know. Well, people have been known. There's still nothing that's happened, nothing that takes place. And then the shooting happens. And how long does it take for police to show up? How many lives are taken until someone with a gun and a badge shows up to do something? In my eyes, it's proven to show that we need more protection.
Yeah, I won't deny that. I definitely think everybody should be armed as far as for protection. I mean, not should, I think that I know they have the right to do that. But, as far as protection, I'm going to result back to as far as, what is it called? Protective deaths, where somebody comes into your house and you have a right to shoot them, whatever they're classifying that. That to me is a great narrative to spin. It's the reason the right to bear arms. But when I hear people say things as far as fighting a tyrannical government, I call it the liberal in me, call it whatever you want. Me, I see that as an NRA right-wing propaganda BS statement. And the reason I do is because, as I stated previously, if these people are going to get to you or they want to kill you, and there's massive individuals that are going to do so, if they've gotten past the cops and they've gotten past the National Guard, which should be deployed if things are getting that out of hand, maybe Trump won't do it, I don't know. But if the government doesn't deploy those and they come to you, doesn't sound like you have a chance regardless of what happened. You may be happy laying 20 people down on the ground, but at the end of the day, if it's that serious that you need to launch 700 or whatever rounds per minute, doesn't sound like you have much of a fighting chance, in my opinion. Again, that's my opinion.
So I hear you, and I want to see if I can meet you more in the middle. I think we both agree when we go out there, carrying, protecting yourself, training. I'm a big push on the training aspect. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, training will limit. At a certain point, it's just like your liberties. And I know people get into liberties and rights. But the fact of the matter is actually this is funny thing, is actually looking at the Constitution, well-armed militia and protecting your home and your personal property. Well, when you're out there, are you a militia? Are you out there? Are you actually forming a group to fight a tyrannical government? Are you actually going out there forming a group? You're not. So to sit back and to state that to have a pistol, be trained on it, have a license and stuff like that to carry out in public, I don't think is an issue or a problem. I think that actually should be happen if you are going to carry out in public. But to meet the Second Amendment, I think you should be able to have whatever you want in your home. And I know me and you may be able to disagree with that, but I think in your home use and home property, which is what the Second Amendment stands for, and militia, because in all honesty, Mikey, if I'm carrying a rifle down the street, am I a militia? No. But if we came together and created a militia, then I go home, I grab my guns, and I create a militia. I'm not out there by myself walking into a Vegas hotel like, oh, don't mind me, I just have my... You see what I'm saying? I think there's a middle ground here, and I think I should be able to purchase whatever I want in my home. But once I leave my home, should I be carrying my AR-15 or my automatic weapons or whatever, people want to throw out with, a 60-round magazine? To be honest with you, I will meet you in the middle with it there. I will say no to that. That should be kept at home. That is your personal property to defend your land, your property. And in case of a call to militia arms, then you can take those weapons and put it out to public, but you have to be part of a militia to do so. But to carry your weapon, like a pistol, out in public for your personal defense, which I've read the Constitution, I've looked at it 101 times. Walking around with a pistol to your hip was something that was banned in the Old West and stuff like that. It was brought back in recent times with the unconcealed permits and stuff like that. Again, do I think you should be trained for it? You should have a license to carry. You should be trained to carry. Then yes, and I agree with that. And if you want to limit the clip size on those, this is the whole point of meeting in the middle. I can see that, and I think rationalize with you on to that point.
Yeah, as much as I would love to meet in the middle, you're putting the trust of individuals in keeping that gun at home. I mean, you're putting trust in people that you don't know. And honestly, I think this coronavirus, which is actually going to be one of our next episodes here, is proof that we cannot trust the public to do the right thing. So although your hypothetical scenario there sounds great, the reason I can't sit in the middle of that is because all it takes is somebody, and this goes onto a deeper level of mental health, is it only takes one person, somebody in Vegas or Sandy Hook, to then say, oh, I have this gun. Oh, it's in my house. I legally own it. Oh, these people pissed me off. Oh, I'm going to grab my backpack and shoot these people. Now you have the same situation, but this person owns it legally. Oh, but they brought it outside illegally. It's not going to end if you do that. So,
it's the same situation that we have now, and you don't think by better arming civilians to know, yes, that person can show up to a crowded area and get off a couple rounds. But just like the church incident, when you have people who are armed surrounding them, you're going to reduce the amount. And if you have a society that when people go into a society knowing that everyone's carrying, you're going to have a reduction in people shooting. And actually, this is one of the things that we didn't talk about in this episode that I would have liked to get into a little bit, which was that gun-free zones for mass public shooting, not inside your home shooting, but mass public shootings happen. 90% of them happen in gun-free zones. So they happen in societies that they know the shooter's not going to be shot back at. And I'm saying get rid of all of that and arm people. I think you're going to see a reduction.
Oh, I definitely won't debate you that if you arm people and give them the right training, you will see those numbers decrease.
So we can meet in the middle on that.
We could definitely meet in the middle of that. That's no debate, in my opinion. But I mean, again, this is another topic that we could go on for hours, and I think we brought up a lot. I think we've brought up a lot.
It's never going to stop. It's the argument that never ends. Yeah. It goes on and on, my friend.
Oh, this is the time to rickroll the audience with "Never Gonna Give You Up, Never Gonna Let You
Down." Me and Cal can hold guns while it plays.
We're gonna get another copyright letter, aren't we?
Okay, well, he doesn't make any money off of it.
Well, actually, since Kyle's already hopped onto the episode, I was actually trying to send you a message. But Kyle, I mean, you are a gun owner yourself. You've stepped in the episodes. You've been quite quiet in this one. Mm-hmm. Would you like to, do you have a thought, a solution with anything that any ending thoughts since you are actually part of this conversation?
No, mostly that you guys hit on the head that it is a very expansive topic. I mean, if I really wanted to be part of the conversation, this would be a 4-hour episode just covering a quarter of what I can argue against it. The only thing is, I don't want to sound like I'm ganging up on Mikey or anything, because, some of us had that feel on the first episode, some of your views when you talk about the whole self-defense thing is kind of defeatist, where just because you don't think you don't stand a chance, you're basically saying lay down. Because think of the movie 300. I know it's a dumb example. It might be a dumb example. But think of 300. 300 people.
Not a dumb example. It's an amazing example.
300 people versus that entire army. They still stood the ground, still had a chance. And it's the same thing as a personal gun or for my own safety. Yes, I can put down a few people and they still might come at me, but I'm more of the type that I'd rather go out guns blazing. You know, I'd rather give myself the best chance because there is a chance, that slight chance, that it could turn in your favor instead of just me lying down saying, well, they've outnumbered me, just come on, you know? And that's the one thing I want you to keep in mind is gotta make sure you realize the other side, the other argument. Because, yeah, you got the guy that can go out with into public and with a 30-round magazine and mow some people down. But think about if that guy comes after you, you can have an equal chance. And that's what the argument it always is on the pro-gun side is the criminals are going to get whatever they want. They're going to manufacture what they want. They're going to buy whatever they want. And we just want the equal chance. And that's where it gets, you know, you can see both sides, that balance. Yeah. And even both sides. Like, I understand your fear and everybody else's fear in what could possibly happen in the worst case scenario. But you also got to remember what it does for the normal person, and even in our own extreme circumstances. Like you said, a lot of my examples are what ifs, and it's true. But look at the St. Louis incident. I said this exact scenario in the first episode, and it came true less than a week later. Less than a week later. It's just something that I want you to keep in mind. I mean, I'm always happy to talk about it and always give examples. I've had great conversations with people as long as everybody just stays chill and willing to look at both sides. I'm always open to it.
It reminds me of that what was it, the Family Guy episode where it's just like, Lois, what was it?
Yeah.
Oh, man, what was it? Was it Family?
South Park, where they all had guns.
They all had the guns.
South Park, yeah.
Oh, was it? I thought it was Family Guy.
It was a South Park episode where everyone pulled out a gun
on each other. Like, man, these things are amazing. But it's so true, and I think and Mikey, I think Kyle definitely explained. Again, when we talk, I always try to meet in the middle and try to, put out the facts. But I think again, that's the whole reason why we had this conversation was to do a lot of understanding, because I think a lot of people, again, they just take sides and they just go, well, you're left, so you have to think like this. You're right, you have to think like this. And a lot of times people don't understand that we have come to conclusions not because we're just right wing or we're just left wing, right? You have understandings. You have a background, Mikey, right, of why you feel a certain way and an understanding to look at a certain situation. And it's the same thing back and forth. And again, that's the point of this show, is not to sit here and force. And I want everyone to understand that this is not a back and forth of me trying to force my opinions on Mikey or Mikey trying to force my opinions. What I'm actually getting out of this is I'm understanding Mikey. I'm sitting back and understanding what he's saying, what's his understanding on things, and certain things, yeah, maybe inform a little bit better. I'm getting informed a little bit better. I'm seeing things from a different perspective, and that's what's beauty about this. That's the whole point of this, is to see things from a different perspective. Because sometimes that's all. We have this all the time, right? You sit back. This is one of the most annoying things sometimes when you're working on a project and you've been working on it for 3-4 hours and you just can't solve it. And someone comes up and goes, oh, did you just move this there? And you're like, and why? It's because you're so endowed. It's so funny because when I became a manager, especially in the maintenance department, this happens all the time. You're as a mechanic, you're underneath a piece of equipment. You're working on that piece of equipment. You're trying your hardest. You're trying to figure out what the fuck is wrong with it. Then your manager walks in. He goes, hey, what are you doing? You're like, this shit won't start. And he just goes, hey, did you check this? This looks a little off. And you're like, son of a... And it's because it's so, but you're so delved into it that you don't think. And when I became a manager, I felt like a pimp sometimes because I always walked into a room fixing things. I'm like, oh yeah, this is what's wrong. This is what's wrong. Call me later, guys, dummies. And it's just like, no, because sometimes when you're that other person's perspective or you're seeing it from the outside in, you can give more information. So I want to let a lot of people understand that. I mean, Kyle, you definitely bring up a good point. And I hope that that's what people see, is that when I'm talking to Mikey like this, I'm not like, oh, just on numbers. I'm throwing the same thing that Kyle is pretty much stating there at the end, which is, we just want you guys to see our view and why we're defending the Second Amendment. We're not gun nuts. We're not sitting here, I want guns and I want to go pew, 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 pew all day long. We have a reason to feel the way we do, just like how you have a reason to feel the way you do, Mikey.
Well, that's why we do the show, get our opinions out there and state why we do it. And I mean, I think we touched on a lot of good topics. We had some good banter in there. And, I just want to put out there, you mentioned that, and some other people had mentioned as well, that it looked like that Kyle was like ganging up on me, and or Kyle and TJ are ganging up. That's not what it was. It's not that at all. I know the perception is that way, but you got to realize that Kyle's a gun guy. He's got to have his say. And I want him to have his say because he thinks like a gun owner. And that's what we want on the show. So, for the people that are saying that it looks like that Kyle and TJ were just bashing on me, that was not it. I understand the perception, but I didn't take it that way. It's information, and it's how they see it. I put how I see it. That's the purpose of the show. These are my best friends. There's no ill will. There never will be. And that's why I chose these guys to do this with me. There's no gang up. We may joke around, but we look.
He says that now, even though we're like the last on the list. He's like, Jesus Christ! Everyone said no.
I cry and I go into a little ball in my bed and I snuggle up with my teddy bear. No, I'm kidding. But all joking aside, I really appreciate, Kyle, you chiming in. I know you were hesitant, but I appreciate you doing it. I did not take it as a gang up. So if anybody says that to you, tell them to go pound sand, because that's not what it was. I get the perception, but they also don't know us like we know us.
Exactly.
So it was not a gang up. It was two people providing their opinions based on the information that they have against an individual that doesn't exactly see it that way, but some things were brought to light. So I'm going to count this as a successful episode. I appreciate you guys. I really do.
Every episode's been successful. I've been learning a lot.
Success, best ratings ever.
The greatest.
Hey, let me see that shirt. Back up again. He snuck it in there. I didn't see it until now. That's awful.
I wasn't going to say anything. I seen it. I wasn't going to say anything. But at the end of the day, thank you, everybody, for watching. We really appreciate it. Our next topic is going to be, I believe, coronavirus. We're going to have a special guest with us, somebody who's out there in the nitty-gritty dirt, helping people that maybe, in my opinion, shouldn't be helped. But look, I don't wish ill upon anybody. And she's an amazing person.
I don't know. It sounded like you did there, Mikey. I'm just saying.
I'm just going to say you can't fix stupid. And we're going to leave it at that for now. Join us next week when we have Colby with us, and we're going to talk about coronavirus. I think me and TJ agree on a lot of this stuff with coronavirus, but we definitely want to get some topics out there, talk about it, and get Colby, who is a nurse, and fighting this on the front lines. We want to see how it is and what's going, and the different things that she's seen. So again,
Mikey, we can agree, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. We want to talk about
absolutely.
Current topics, guys. It's not always going to be that we disagree, because the fact of the matter, what we're trying to promote here is that we are in the middle. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm pretty sure once we get into COVID-19, there are going to be things that we disagree on. But actually, I want to say 80% we actually do agree on. And, we sit back and, again, we both look at the numbers. We're number guys, and we follow the numbers and, what speaks to us and what we understand. And I'm very excited about next episode of COVID-19, because I think that is a topic that is very much in the news right now. And to let you guys know, thank you guys for liking us on Facebook and joining. And we actually have another guest lined up right after Kobe, another one of our good old friends from high school who has a big career in front of him. So we're going to bring him on. And then we're hearing back from Valentino Lopez, who's been dying to do another episode of this show. So, guys, this is awesome. Please continue to send us messages and ask and be like, hey, are you willing to do a show? Or are you on the topic? We want you guys on. This doesn't always have to just be the three of us on here and just talking. We want to hear from you guys, and it just lets us know how exciting this show is that you guys are actually wanting to be on. I'm loving it. It's showing that, oh man, these guys are sitting back and actually talking, and I get to voice my opinions on this show. We want you. So continue following us, continue making the show exciting, and thank you guys for all your feedback. And we are excited to be doing this show every week for you.
Yes, thank you guys, everybody, for tuning in. From Mike, Kyle, and TJ, from wherever you're watching, whatever you're watching, we bid you adieu.